Well, I was just doing like our shuso and scrolling through and looking at the different windows. Um, Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Shinryu. And I was seeing in every little frame a moment of experience that is equal to every other frame and distinct from every other frame, not interfering with or obstructing any other frame, flowing together and making up the whole gallery. So there it is, Zoom as Uji. So we're in the final hours of the final day of our year-end retreat and of our year. And it's been quite a time. For many years, more than 20 years, we've been putting on year-end retreats, residential retreats. This is the first time we've ever done a year-end retreat that was online. So it's been an experiment. I don't think any of us really knew how it would go. Um, there's a lot of uh, trial and error and learning as we go. We had the summer retreat as a reference point to do this, but still, this is different. Um, and so a lot of beginner's mind, I think, throughout the week. And I think it's been interesting to hear some of the conversations within the community before the retreat started and during the retreat about um, how different this is from doing a residential retreat together. And I tend to think they're really very different. I tend to think that it's actually a lot harder to do an online uh, retreat and not be in the same space together. But have to say that the night of the first day, there was a point where I just felt all of this energy. It felt exactly like what I feel um, the at the beginning of a residential retreat. All of that energy flowing together, and I thought, did I just imagine that, or does this stuff work actually at a distance the way it works if you're in the same room? And then the next day, day two, was pretty rough and a lot of fatigue. And then the next day was pretty solid and settled. I thought, actually, that's pretty much what I go through on a regular in-person retreat too. And no doubt, all the sitting that we've been doing has its effect, whatever the surroundings. So I don't know. I'm really not sure I understand what it is we've been doing here. Um, it's been interesting to get your reactions. I'm sure we're going to be absorbing this uh, for a long time. But I wanted to say a word of thanks to everyone who put on this experiment, the team, or what's really a team of teams. There was the team of people who sat down after the summer retreat and said, so how should we do a year-in online retreat? And the web team and the publicity team that put the notice up and put the notice out, the registration team that did yeoman's work. We've had more people on this retreat than for any other retreat we've ever done. I don't know what the exact final tally was, but my guess it's probably around 108, which is to say a lot of people. And how about the team that worked its algorithmic magic to bring all of these students and all these teachers together for interview um, day after day? and the the liturgy team, and the team that trained the liturgy team, and the team that made the audios for the liturgy, and the bodywork team. I've so enjoyed every one of the bodywork sessions. And our excellent Zoom hosts. And I could go on and on. But I have to also mention our Shuso Kojin here, who's put so much effort and energy into this, going back to the very beginning, the first meetings, to organize us. He came up with that great Ango commitment form to really help us take advantage of this over the coming months. He's given us his guiding words in the work service, which have been wonderful. He's given us his big heart. He's given us his sensitivity to the intimate matter of practice and his sensitivity to the suffering in the world at large. So thank you all. We've also had the Dharma talks to guide us with this study text, with the matter of time and being. Enkyo Roshi started us off, setting the perfect tone for really looking at these matters intimately in our own life. And I heard her questions. How could anything be left out of this moment? How could I not have enough time if I am myself time? This completely shifts the perspective. And she brought us home to the now, which is just where we needed to be for this retreat at home. And Miyoko Sensei, in her own intimate way, gave us a very clear, simple way of approaching this problem, to see each moment as equal, each moment of experience as unique, and the way we build our life out of each moment, the way a potter built a pot. And Ryotan Roshi took up the challenge of trying to make sense for us, poor Dogen, and the pushback that Dogen's got from some of us. I saw that too in interviews in the Mondo. And he was really trying to help us see how we get stuck in our practice, especially how we set up some kind of great ideal, like an iron ox, which leaves us like a teeny mosquito trying to bite that ox, and thereby really not see and appreciate our own lives as the life of Buddha. And then yesterday, Joshin's talk, I knew this would happen to me sooner or later because I've seen it happen to other speakers, but it finally happened to me because she spoke to exactly the passages and the points that I had thought to talk about today. And when she was done, I thought, there's really not anything more to say, and I can just excuse you all from the Dharma talk. You're off the hook. But it is true that all of the Dharma talks say the same thing in their distinct way. So I guess you can't get off the hook, and I can't get off the hook. But to me, her talk really brought out that quality of freshness to the moment. In the interviews and the mondos that I've done, one of the things that's touched me is hearing some of the older members of our community talk about the feeling that they have that their time is short, that they don't have a lot of time in which to really enter into the way and to really obtain the way. And the sense that time is short is not really the sense of Uji. That's not the sense that Dogen is conveying in Uji, but he does convey that in some of his other teachings. And this sense was important for Dogen, and I just wanted to share it with everybody. In his teachings to his monks in the Shobogenzo Zuimongi, Dogen says, if the aspiration to seek the way is earnest enough, when you practice shikantaza, study the koans, or meet your teacher, though the aim is high, you will hit the mark, and though it is deep, you will fish it out. To arouse such an aspiration, think deeply in your heart of the impermanence of the world. It is not a matter of meditating using some provisional method of contemplation. It is not a matter of fabricating in our heads that which does not really exist. Impermanence is truly the reality in front of our eyes. We need not wait for some teaching from others, some proof from some passage of scripture or some principle. Born in the morning and dead in the evening, a person we saw yesterday is no longer here today. These are the facts we see with our eyes and hear with our ears. This is what we see and hear about others. Applying this to our own bodies and thinking of the reality of all things, though we expect to live for 70 or 80 years, we die when we must die. So this arousing of aspiration is what I was hearing from some of our own Sangha members. And this arousing of aspiration is the time being itself, and it is actualization itself. It is activation of time being, arousing this aspiration. Being is not just a big blob. Being isn't just a big ontological blob. It's not, because as Ryotan Roshi said, it's dynamic. It's dynamic because it's time and it is constantly flowing and transforming. And it's not a blob because it's, as Myoko Sensei said, it is unique in each moment as it is flowing and transforming. And as Joshin Roshi said, it is fresh in each moment. If being were just a big ontological blob, then the Dharma would just be, it is what it is. It is what it is, but it isn't just, it is what it is. If it were just, it is what it is, then we would just be sitting around like bumps on a log. But being is not a log. It's not an inert anything, because it is constantly flowing. And we ourselves are not bumps on that inert log. And we ourselves are not anything either, because we are constantly flowing. So it's this sense of the active dimension of being that I think is most important in the text. And I wanted to focus on the way Dogen emphasizes effort and emphasizes practice and actualization. And this is exactly what Joshin Roshi was referring to yesterday. So just to read very briefly a few bits. Dogen says, to fully actualize the entire world with the entire world is called thorough practice. All beings of all kinds in the visible and invisible realms are the time being actualized by your complete effort, flowing due to your complete effort. The time being is entirely actualized without being caught up in nets or cages. Vigorously abiding in each moment is the time being. So what does he mean by this actualization? What does he mean by this vigorous abiding in the moment? I think it really comes down to something very simple, and that is just being awake right now. That is letting go of the chain of thoughts and coming back to and entering into this moment with an open heart, mind. It's just being awake right now. And this moment of awareness is rolling the coil and making the pot. Now, it's true that if we don't let go of the chain of thoughts, if we are not outside our nets and cages, if we are asleep, it's also the time being. But there's still a big difference between one and the other. There's a big difference between making a pot out of awareness or making a pot out of greed and anger and ignorance. So they don't look the same. They don't feel the same. They don't sit the same way. And they don't function the same way. And we have the choice to make one kind of pot or the other kind of pot. What kind of pot do we want to make? So this year of 2020 is finally coming to an end. I'm tempted to want to call it an appalling year, but I appreciated that Joshin called it an extraordinary year and a humbling year because it was extraordinary and it was humbling as well as appalling. There was a lot of loss, even in our own community. Friends lost family members, lost jobs, lost homes. It was a year of a lot of violence, and unfortunately, the words of Eric Garner still continue to resonate very loudly, especially for people of color in our society. And that violence shapes and warps the life of all of us, including those of us who are not people of color. It's been a year of environmental and psychic wreckage. One of our community members who lives in Northern California said that he wasn't able to take his 2 kids out of the house for 7 weeks because of the air quality. And many people spoke to me about their anxiety, their anger, sleeplessness. So I think it's affected all of us directly and indirectly in some ways that we may not even realize. And I realize that the whole year hasn't been just, wreckage and violence and loss. It hasn't been only that, but I do want to acknowledge that today. And I think that's why it's been so important for us to come together at the end of this year, uh, because we all needed some breathing room, most of us anyway. And that's how I'm seeing this retreat, as a kind of breathing room. In Armando yesterday, several different people talked about the anger that they've been feeling. And it kind of came out as we talked that that could be linked to feelings of, well, not the feelings, but the fact of being locked down. That language of lockdown is the language of imprisonment. That's the language we hear at Sing Sing on a regular basis. But we've all been locked down to some extent or another. Or we've had our lives taken from us. Or literally, people we know and love have been taken from us and have lost their lives. But to have this kind of breathing room and to be able to notice these feelings allows us to build a life out of awareness. To be aware of this anger, we can build a life out of awareness. So we've been fortunate to have this time to sit together, to breathe together, to notice together, and not be subject to the constant barrage of news and pressures and distractions and obligations. Just to be able to acknowledge and transform some of the pressure, terrible pressure that we feel. Transform it into awareness. Not be quite so caught up in our webs and cages. Let our brains cool off a little bit, settle down into our bodies, ground ourselves, notice what's going on, and then be able to step forth and re-engage the world in the next moment. In years past, when we would do our year-end retreat, we would have a ceremony at the end, New Year's ceremony, in which everyone in the community would have a chance to come up and to strike the big bell. And in striking it, to hold their vow for the new year close to their heart. So this year we can't do that, but we do have the Ango commitments that some of you have made. And so that's something you can hold close as we go into this whole period of Ango study. Some of you may have formulated vows for this New Year ceremony, or you may have done so just on your own. But if you don't have another vow in mind, we could do worse than to follow Dogen's lead. And that is to try to actualize the world with the world through our awareness in this moment. Vows are a tricky thing because we have to be careful not to try to set up some lofty goal that is unrealistic, like a great iron ox that we can't really bite. But vows are also a good way to channel our energy and intention uh, going forward. So let us roll the coils of clay that we have at hand to make the pot of our life and make our world. And let us step forward right now without separation from the past, without separation from the future, without separation from anyone or anything else. Let us step forward right now into this beautiful and tragic and fresh and roiling world. And I'll just leave you with something that Enkyo Roshi said on the first day. Time as the universe commands us to serve and care and act in the world. Thank you.